The Chargers fought tooth and nail through injury to make the playoffs last season, only to give up a big lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They now head into 2023 hoping to change their fortunes, and Brandon Staley's desperately trying to cool off his hot seat. Will it happen? Let's go ahead and discuss. And what's crackalackin' is your boy Broshmo. Just in case you did not know so, go ahead, become bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content as always. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that nice, beautiful football discourses. Today we're talking about the Los Angeles Superchargers. We're going to go over the coaching staff, the scheme, and the roster. But stick with me until the end of the video because I'm going to give you my prediction on the Chargers in 2023. But without further ado, let's go ahead, get into this sucker. Let's start with the head coach, Brandon Staley. He comes in as a defensive-minded head coach, being the former DC of the Rams. He worked under Vic Fangio, and to be fair, I mean, we saw a lot of those influences in his scheme, typically being cover 2 and quarters heavy, this more bend, don't break, and that's kind of why the run defense has just been god awful, literally the worst run defense in the league. Though we saw during the last stretch of last season him incorporating more of this press and man defense, and I like that because they got the horses to do it. When we get to the defense, we're going to talk about how this really helps guys like JC Jackson, Michael Davis, and the like. But he is on this hot seat because this team just feels like they can never get over the hump. Like, we talked about this team always coming so close in wins, only to end up losing. And then last year, they despite all the injuries going on, they make the playoffs and only to blow what was a 27 point lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So yeah, kind of a letdown. And now they bring in another new offensive coordinator, hoping to change their fortunes there. I quickly do want to mention the DC is Derek Ainsley, who's being promoted after being the defensive backs coach for the squad last year. But this, for all intents and purposes, this is Brandon Staley's defense. They will incorporate a little bit of blitz, and something I thought they did a little bit more also down the stretch. There were a lot of things I thought Staley did pretty well down the stretch defensively for the squad, but Kellen Moore comes in here hoping to finally tap into the raw potential of Justin Herbert that we've seen but briefly. But briefly, like Joe Lombardi couldn't do it last year. Now they bring in a very good offensive-minded coach like Kellen Moore. I forgot his name for a second. Kellen Moore, to help run things. If you're unfamiliar with his scheme, what he did, at least what we saw there in Dallas, that he leaned a bit more on like 12 personnel, and I put here that he does a little bit of everything, because he does. Like, if you look at like RPOs, if you look at just the quick passing game, play action, motion, no huddle, stuff of that sort, he doesn't really lean into one thing primarily. But yet, you look at his success rate when coming out of all these formations, he's consistently in the top 10, whether it be RPO, whether it be play action, whether it be no huddle motion, 12 personnel, 13%. Like, he knows how to switch things up and keep the defense on ice skates, keep them on their toes. And I really like that. Now, I know some people are going to make comparisons between him and Lombardi in terms of the quick passing game. Lombardi was a guy that really liked his sticks and hitches. And yeah, there's going to be aspects of that in Kellen Moore's scheme, but he won't lean on it independently. That's going to be the big difference here. Even with like this team, they ran actually a lot of power last year, the Chargers. And we see with Kellen Moore, he doesn't mind power. Again, not in the top 10 in terms of usage of it, but he typically leaned a lot on counter, trying to keep the defense honest and whatnot. So I'm very excited for what Kellen Moore brings to this offense, and we could definitely see maybe them unleash the beast. You got a big arm quarterback in Justin Herbert. Get him to be chucking the ball down there like he can. He was very successful when going deep. The problem was they didn't ask him to do it consistently. They really, really did. His average depth of target was a hot, what, like 7? Sub 7 yards, 6.9. That's wild. Wow. So take advantage of what you got in Justin Herbert. And we might as well go to the roster at this point, because I'm going to talk a little bit about Justin Herbert and what to expect from this offense. But first, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is currently one of the most premier fantasy betting apps, and they got a best ball tournament with $15 million in cash prizes. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code Broshmo, they will match your first deposit up to $100. Remember, use promo code Broshmo when you sign up at Underdog Fantasy, and they'll match that first deposit up to $100. Dudes, we're knee deep in fantasy football season, and they are the best place to play best ball. If you love playing best ball, they got best ball mania going on with $15 million in cash prizes available. But as always, my friends, bet responsibly. Let's get into this offense. As yes, no surprise, I have them as a top 10 unit. They were kind of one last year anyway. And they have the horses. They have the weapons. You just look at the receiving core. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. He's not listed on here, but Joshua Palmer. They now add Quentin Johnston. You have one of the best receiving backs in the NFL, and Austin Eckler. Gerald Everett was really good last season. Like, he was a bit hot and cold, but that's kind of typical for the tight end position. You know, and especially if you go back to that playoff game, man, he was studded. But you got to make use of these guys. And I think they have the right amount of different spices to just have a beautiful variety here in the receiving core for Justin Jefferson, a guy whose arm is capable of delivering the ball on all levels of the field. He gives you a little bit of mobility. He's able to extend the plays with his feet if he has to. And again, they're kind of fortunate that hopefully health will be on their side, because I think Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, I think in terms of wide receiver duos, they were the least on the field at the same time than any other duo in the NFL. So yeah, you kind of want those guys to stay healthy, and they kind of understood. Like, I feel like the Chargers understood that going into the draft, that like, hey, we have problems with injury, and particularly when it comes to our weapons. Like, I mean, you could even look at Jalen Guyton. He was banged up last year. I think he missed almost largely all of last season. And he's kind of their vertical speed threat. It's like, we need to just keep adding horses. Like, if we're going to be this banged up, because, like, again, it's kind of been consistent for both Allen and Mike Williams, then it's like we need to keep adding horses for Justin to throw to. Because this is the guy that's kind of like, he's right there. He's tasting it. He can feel, put me in that tier with guys like Patrick Mahomes, with your Josh Allens, with your Joe Burrows. Put me in that tier. He can just taste it. And I think they can this year. I think Kellen Moore is going to do a lot of fun things with this offense. We'll get to the depth a little bit later, but you know, I was talking about like with the wide receivers, they kind of add a little bit of everything. As you got Mike Williams, who's this prototypical X, big body, can be a possession guy, could also win deep with his huge frame, huge catch radius. Keenan Allen, very shifty, one of the best route runners, I would say, in the NFL. That he's just smooth and he can create after the catch. Then you add Quentin Johnston, who is someone he can be that yak guy, right? He's got a big frame, a big target to throw to, and one of my favorite things about him is how quickly he turns upfield to make plays. That was something that TCU made huge use of. But he could also win vertically, as his long speed is really good as well, and he provides that big target. You sprinkle in a little like a Joshua Palmer, who I think is a good wide receiver 3 in the NFL. Like, he is a very balanced guy, maybe not the most explosive, maybe not the fastest guy, but I think he could be a reliable target. I like how I love this wide receiving core for that. Gerald Everett, for all intents and purposes, yes, very much a receiving tight end. As a blocker, it's kind of like there's worse guys in the NFL than Gerald Everett. You could line up as a blocker in line, but he's fine enough. He is there because he is fast. He is a great receiving weapon if we were just looking at him last year. Also what he can do after the catch. 18 forced missed tackles is kind of a nutty number on 64 receptions. So yeah, the guy can create. We haven't even talked enough about Austin Eckler, what he can do. This man is shifty. He is probably, after Christian McCaffrey, the best receiving running back in the NFL. Last season, just looking at what he did receiving wise, 109 receptions, which that's just a ludicrous number for a running back. For over 700 yards, he had 5 tutties, but 28 forced missed tackles. That dude can create after the catch. You love to see it. They got the horses. They got the quarterback. They can make it work. Let's take a look at the depth that they have here available offensively. I mentioned Jalen Guyton. He's currently on the PUP, but he's kind of that vertical speedster. Darius Davis is kind of similar in that regard. More I think more along the return aspect. I think didn't he have a punt or a kick return in preseason? He returned for a tutty, so already paying dividends, and those are likely your 6 guys there. Looking at the rest there, I mean, Keelan Doss really hasn't done much in this league. John Hightower, after being like a 5th round draft pick out of Boise State by the Eagles, he was kind of supposed to be another kind of a tall vertical speedster, and that just hasn't come to fruition. They have a couple of UDFAs, though couldn't really tell you about any of them in particular. I think Terrell Bynum came out of USC. He had good testing numbers, but there wasn't anything really there wasn't a ton of production for him. I believe, wasn't he a transfer from Arizona State to USC? I can't remember off the top of my head. Looking at your depth at tight end, because that's kind of key, because I mentioned Kellen Moore is someone who, well, he likes his 12 personnel, so that he's going to get these tight ends involved. Darnell Parham just hasn't been a guy that can stay healthy. He's tall. He's this big, he provides a really big target for his quarterback. Isn't he like 6'6"? What are you? 6'8"? That's how much they got him up to? Cool. But 237 pounds. But I mean, that's a lot distributed across his frame. But let's not fool ourselves here. They're not exactly ideal blockers. So we might see a lot more of Trey McKitty, who only had 12 receptions last year, but he is a very good blocking tight end that came from Georgia a few years ago. So he's probably going to get a bit more involved here, especially if they want to consistently run the football. Though we could go to what they have in terms of running the football. And I hate the depth. Like Xander Harvath, the kind of the fullback here, like he's gonna be a nice goal line guy as well. Like, he's gonna get involved here. He is gonna get involved here because I think a lot of times people kind of make the parallel to when it comes to Kellen Moore, it's kind of like a pseudo Shanahan offense. So like if you give him a half H-back, a fullback like this, then yeah, he will best utilize that guy. But in terms of backups behind Austin Eckler, Joshua Kelly is one of my least favorite like backup running backs in the league. I wasn't that high on him coming out of UCLA, I believe. I just didn't see that it factor from him. Yeah, UCLA, I just didn't see it from him. And we've yet to see it in the NFL. Isaiah Spiller was someone I know the general consensus was very high on. And for me, I think I had him in that 4th, 5th round area. And I was like, yeah, he looks like he could develop into a fine complementary back. And yeah, he hasn't been able to unseat Kelly. As a matter of fact, like what's his workload looked like last year? How was he involved? Because I don't remember because they brought in Sony Michel. I forgot about that. So yeah, he was barely on the field. He only had 23 snaps offensively. So not great. And he wasn't even effective when out there. I mean, they bring in Elijah Dotson from, I think it's North Colorado as a UDFA, but like this is like probably the worst running back depth in the whole league. Kind of is the truth. But fortunately, they're running behind a very good offensive line, and I expect to take some big strides, some big steps this season as they get back Rashawn Slater, who missed most of, if not all of last season, right? Or I'm trying to remember. I think he was in like the first game. Here, let me pull it up like this. Yeah, okay, he played the first 3 games. Got it. Cool. I remember him at least starting this season. I couldn't remember exactly when he got hurt, but he gets to come back. So you're going to get a borderline elite tackle returning to you. But to be fair, last season, Jamari Sawyer stepped in, someone who, going through the draft process, came out of Georgia, and I didn't really like him as a tackle because honestly, he functioned more as a guard for Georgia. He was typically always lined with a tight end or 2 tight ends out to his side. So he's functioning more as an interior player. And when he went to the Senior Bowl and he was doing more work out at guard, I was like, oh yeah, I like him a lot now. I think that's a better position for him. But he comes in here and does a really solid job. Like, is it solid enough to move forward with there at the tackle position? I think you make a case. Maybe a right tackle, but if you want to keep this guy on the field, which I think they do, then yeah, you're going to move him into guard there. So he's going to be playing right guard. They have Trey Pipkins, who's kind of been a slow burner, has slowly developed over the last, was it like 3 seasons? They've had him since 2019. Golly, it's even longer than I remember. But coming out of Sioux Falls, he was largely considered a developmental prospect. He really, really was. So I still think the play strength's still coming along, but like, honestly, you could do worse. You could do worse. If he's like the weakest guy on your line, you're going to feel like you're in good shape. And Jamari Sawyer, I just don't think he has the feet to play out there at tackle. It's just much better at guard. Zion Johnson, I feel like basically started every game last season for the Chargers, and there was ups, there was downs. I expect him to be much more solid in year 2. Corey Lindsey, one of the best centers in the league, especially as a pass protector. So you look at this offensive line, you look at the starters here, and you're like, okay, let's say Trey Pipkins, probably the weakest guy there. If Johnson and Sawyer take these jumps, then yeah, you're looking at Pipkins as the worst player on your offensive line. You feel like you're in good shape. And then you get to the freaking depth of this squad and you're just like disgusted. You throw open your mouth a little bit. Like, they got nobody. Like, I'm looking at this and maybe Braden James, Will Clapp, Jordan McFadden. Maybe. Perhaps. Will Clapp, he's fine depth. You don't want him seeing a lot of snaps, though. Jordan McFadden is a 5th round pick. He played tackle at Clemson. He doesn't have the ideal length, and just kind of feels better translated as a guard. But if you need him to play, if you do have those injuries again, like a Rashawn Slater goes on, or maybe Pipkins, then I think you could probably ask him to step up and play tackle, though you're probably giving Sawyer, who you already saw in the NFL, do it well enough. You probably have McFadden come in and play guard at that point. Braden James, I'm trying to remember, he was out of Nebraska, I think. Yeah, Nebraska. Another guy who was going from like tackle to guard. So it's like maybe he could play in a pinch, but outside of that, who do they have? Nobody. Like Zach Bailey. Like, has this guy taken a snap in the NFL? Like, what is his snap total? Like, I could honestly tell you, I've not watched Zach Bailey film. So I really don't know how productive this cat has actually been. As they have him lined up at guard, and oh no, has he really never taken a snap in the NFL? That can't be true. Wow. How's he listed as the backup? It's going to be wild. But like, yeah, I couldn't tell you much about these other guys because there's just guys that haven't seen a lot of snaps in the NFL. So you don't feel like you're going to be in a good place when probably your at least most proven depth is Will Clapp. So cheers to the Chargers staying healthy, really. But regardless, it's just the horses they have offensively makes this offense very potent, very dangerous. I kind of went in depth or talked about just how good that offensive line can be if healthy. So they got the horses to really be something special here. Now let's go to the defense, because the defense is an area that really needs to get better. And the question is, will they get better? Well, I have them as an average unit, kind of in that middle to early bottom of the NFL. That 16th to 20th is where I have them. And I don't see the run defense getting any better. What was their biggest, let me ask you, what was their biggest addition to kind of help improve this run game? Oh, wait. Yes, easily. It was Eric Kendricks. The guy, admittedly, getting older, losing steps. He was kind of expected to be a cap casualty eventually for the Vikings. But that's it. This defensive line is very lackluster as run stuffers because they're just not. Morgan Fox is not a run stuffer. He is not a guy you want playing inside the tackle. Sebastian Joseph-Day, he's fine enough as a run stuffer. I'm cool with that. Can Austin Johnson, can he stay healthy? Because like he's been pretty solid when on the field. It's just he just hasn't been healthy as of late. So it's like you look at the defensive line, you're just like, I don't expect them to be able to stop the run well. I have them as a bottom unit as run stuffers. I mean, we could go more in depth, see what they have there, that guys that possibly can maybe get the job done. But like, again, Morgan Fox, just he's someone that if you're going to play him as a run defender, you probably want him playing at least over top of the tackle in this like 5-tech area. Sebastian Joseph-Day is fine enough, but honestly, it should be more of this rotational player. Austin Johnson is fine when healthy. And then they bring in Nick Williams, who's kind of a gritty vet at this point. But I think actually one of the picks that I really liked a lot was Scott Matlock. I thought he came out, had a very impressive, I believe it was the NFLPA Bowl, and then he ended up going to the Shrine. But coming out of Boise, a guy that plays with a big motor, might not necessarily always be the strongest or the quickest guy, but someone who consistently was able to get things done, whether it was closing his run-in lanes or just playing discipline against the run or being able to get after the quarterback. So like someone to keep an eye out there. I was also a big fan of Gerard Clark coming out of Coastal Carolina, a guy who I imagine wasn't drafted because of all the injury red flags. Like they were immense. But if you can, look into this guy's story. Like he has a very inspirational story, just coming from tragedy and then setback after setback, and finally being able to stay healthy, be the captain of this Coastal Carolina team, and then just play at a high level for them. He was a former tight end, and then he initially made the move to an offensive lineman, but he liked the attacking aspect of playing on defense. He was like, I don't like necessarily having to sit back and pass it and whatnot. I want to go and get after it. And he certainly did that. Like he moves pretty well for a guy that's like, is he 330? He was 350, I know, at one point. Where do they got him listed? 334. Okay. So he's that bigger dude, but again, you're relying on a UDFA. I mean, I do expect him to be someone that if he makes a squad, that someone that will see some playing time this season. You have Otito Ogbanya, who's more of this toolsy prospect, more so as a pass rusher. So again, maybe someone you're not going to play against the run. Christopher Hinton was a UDFA out of Michigan, who honestly I thought probably could have been a draftable prospect if he decided to return and go into the 2023 draft rather than going into 2022. But another dude that's just, very strong, big body. I think he might be the guy that can help with the run defense for this squad. What are you weighing at, my friend? 310. 310. But I mean, there at Michigan, he was playing nose tackle and whatnot. So I'm asking you, where in the middle is this team? Do you feel good about this team consistently stopping the run? Because I don't think they are. But they can get after the passer. Morgan Fox did an exceptional job at getting after the passer last season. If you go look, 42 pressures, 7 sacks. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Hopefully Joey Bosa can stay healthy. He dealt with the groin injury last year. So you're talking about one of the better edge rushers in today's game. It's just, can he stay healthy? Khalil Mack, yeah, he's getting older. He's lost a step or two, but still Khalil Mack, a guy that has a very good all-around skill set for this squad. But they also have some solid depth behind guys like Khalil Mack and Joey Porter, as you have Toi Peloto, who I really liked coming out of USC. I thought initially he was going to be this like more so of like this 3-tech penetrator and someone who played at like 295 for USC, but then he shows up at the combine at 266 and he's like, nah, I'm going to be an edge rusher, and didn't have like the most explosive test numbers, but he is very well put together in terms of his toolbox and his counters, and a guy that can't get after, and he proved that there at USC. And nasty spin move, so someone that can probably kick to like a 4 tech on passing downs. So maybe someone that gets involved early for this squad. Chris Rump's been around for a minute. I really liked him coming out of Duke, but I knew he was someone that needed to put on more weight, but he does bring that explosiveness off of the edge. Andrew Farmer, I believe he was a HBCC prospect, right? I can't remember where from specifically. Lane College. So like you liked some of the measurables. I do think he had sub-ideal arm length though. And he tested like fine, but he was very productive there at Lane College. Fortunately with him, I couldn't give a fair evaluation because all I like to get my hands on was just like a little bit of his highlights. And you're not going to get a fair evaluation of a guy, so if that's all you have. So sorry, not sorry. I think Brevin Allen, was he Campbell? I believe he was Campbell. Yeah, I remember him, man. This dude got after it too. So maybe someone to watch out for. It feels like more of a practice squad developmental prospect. But okay, you have a couple of guys like Toi Peloto is probably the first guy you want coming off the bench, and he's got a flexible enough body type to maybe kick inside and help as a pass rush. Like pass rush, I'm not concerned. It's really the run game. We moved to the second level, and you got Eric Kendricks, who is a good linebacker in today's NFL. Like he a few years ago, you could argue that he was like a top 3 linebacker in the league. I think now it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, he's starting to slow down at an older age, but he's still that crafty vet. He knows how to just not find himself out of position, whether it's in coverage or whether it's against the run. So like big fan of the pickup there. Kenneth Murray though, I think he's going into his final year. Someone who's just more athlete than linebacker, and it just hasn't really all clicked for him, especially as a tackler. I believe last season, actually, the tackle rate wasn't so bad last season as it has been in years past. But I mean, he's a good athlete. I mean, you're just kind of hoping for the contract year out of him. I mean, that's why they go out and they draft in the 3rd round Dion Henley. There we go, out of Washington State, who right now, at least from what I read, firmly kind of a guy that's not going to start the season as a starter, but could end up in the starter rotation soon enough. If you're not familiar with him, he was initially a receiver at Nevada. Like this dude was returning kicks at Nevada, made the transition to linebacker, and then decided to transfer to Washington State, where he just kind of like got put on everybody's draft radar because the dude can blitz hella good. He's a better tackler than you would expect from a former wide receiver. He just kind of needs to learn. He just needs to learn how to be more disciplined and how to not find himself out of position to make a play, whether it's in the run game, how he tracks the ball carrier down, how to find the best route, avoid traffic, or whether it's just in general in coverage, just being aware of what's behind you, because that was a problem there at Washington where it was like he plays everything underneath very well. It's just occasionally, man, someone will sneak up behind him and he'll get blown up for like a 15-20 yard pass there in the middle. So like Henley, I got a lot of faith in. Like I was pretty high on Henley during the process. Nick Niemann, let's just go ahead and jump to back to the depth chart here. Nick Niemann, I think, can be fine when called upon. More of a special teamer at this right now at this juncture, but if you need him to come start a few games, I think you're in a good. I think that's fine. You're not going to be in a bad position. Couldn't tell you much about the other guys there outside of Mikael Jones, someone who I really liked coming out of Syracuse. He played a lot in these like mug fronts where he would line up on the line of scrimmage, line up with the defensive line, but they're playing like this Tampa 2 where he also has to fly back and kind of be like the middleman in a cover 3, essentially a cover 3. I mean, that's basically what Tampa 2 is. It's inverted cover 3. So he's having to fly from the line of scrimmage all the way to his spot that's like 10 to 15 yards behind him, and he did that at a very good. He did that very well. But I was a big fan. I was really shocked that he ended up going undrafted. So someone who might not make the roster, but keep an eye out for. I'm a big fan of. But what really helps out this team is this secondary, because first off, they got a JC Jackson. They got a big name there who obviously ever since he became a Charger has been hurt or played bad. And I think especially with how we saw with Staley kind of gearing a bit more to press and to playing a little bit of man coverage, that plays to JC Jackson's strength. So hopefully he can stay healthy and get healthy. I still think they're in the process of kind of just what is the word I'm looking for? Easing him back as a starter. There we go. That's a great way to put it. Michael Davis, man, he kind of really emerged as a top 15 corner last season. Do I think he's a consistent top? No, I don't. But I think if any team would love to have Michael Davis as his corner too. He's got good size and he played especially well. He loves to get physical with receivers. So having him, if you're going to be playing to strength, then that's where it's at right there. So Michael Davis looked beautiful. And then this is going to be interesting. Asante Samuel Jr. now kicks into the slot where a lot of people rejected him just because of the lack of size, but a guy that really knows the game of football, knows it exceptionally well, knows just when to jump. Like we saw that especially in the playoff game last season. He had was it 2 or 3 picks on Trevor Lawrence, where to be fair, like all of them were just like very good plays by Asante Samuel. Now kick into the inside of the nickel, where I don't think he's probably the best run defender, but I think he's fine enough to where he can make some plays in coverage. But again, if JC Jackson, if the wheels kind of fall off again, he will go play on the outside, and you have no worries of that because of how you saw him play last season. So I really like that corner trio, and they really don't have much behind those guys, unfortunately. We'll get to them in the depth in a second. But now, yeah, you also have Derwin James, who's just a monster, one of the top safeties in the league, a guy that at his best is like coming downhill with a head full of steam, looking for someone to annihilate, whether that's in coverage or in the run game. He could play as a dime linebacker, just someone who's really good in the short to intermediate parts of the field. Not really a guy you want being this deep safety. He's not going to cover a ton of ground, like I said, at his best when he's coming downhill. But I mean, they're not going to ask him to do that, or at least not to a high degree. I think last season, how often was he actually? He was barely he only lined up a little less than 300 snaps as a traditional deep, because they gave a lot of cover 3 looks last season as well, as they started shifting more to the man scheme. But someone that I don't think they're going to be playing deep a ton. That was more so Alohi Gilman. That's what they were asking him. And it's not like he's the best athlete in the world. I actually wasn't huge on him coming out of, was it Navy? No, Notre Dame. I knew it was some sort of gold. Coming out of Notre Dame, I was like, I remember my exact evaluation of him was just, oh yeah, he's probably going to be one of the better box safeties in this class. And I stand by that. He's not like the best athlete, but he's been someone who has actually developed pretty nicely now that Nasir Adderley went ahead and retired. Wish you your best in your future endeavors, my friend. You know, I was a big fan of you coming out of Delaware. But he now kind of steps into that role where it's like, is that something you really want him to be consistently doing? Because he is really good around the box. He is, when he's coming downhill, 8% missed tackle rate. Pretty darn solid. So I don't know. We'll see. But like, I don't think he's been a huge letdown when they asked him to step up and kind of play a lot of snaps playing deep. It's just, I don't know if that's something he's going to be able to do like for a whole year. I think they're probably, I mean, I trust Staley to get creative. I mean, he's already shown the ability to adjust to what personnel is available to him. So I don't think that maybe, I don't think he'll consistently be put in that position where he's kind of having to play the center fielder role, which is actually more so which now we could go to the depth. It's more so a JT Woods thing. Like JT Woods was this kind of taller safety coming out of Baylor who just long strides, cover the field like nobody's business, and has a legit nose for the football. Like, yeah, is he good against the run? No, but you probably want to play him at a deep safety. So someone definitely to watch out for in this rotation. Couldn't tell you much about the other guys here outside of maybe AJ Finley was someone I actually liked coming out of Ole Miss. Had a very good all-star circuit. And I was surprised didn't end up going drafted, at least in the later rounds. That kind of shocked me, but definitely someone to watch out there for. Sorry, my chair is squeaky. They got Jasir Taylor here, who will be the backup in the slot if they do go with Asante Samuel. If they hold on to guys like Tywan Mullen or Tyler Baker-Williams, I think those two guys could contend for slot snaps as well. Tywan Mullen might just stick on this team because the depth at corner is not great. Dean Leonard, Kamon Hall, all kind of meh. So yeah, you get to like Tywan Mullen. He's a bit undersized, but the dude can get after. And I thought he was used when he was in the slot, played pretty darn well for Indiana. So it's like the depth. That's something I've kind of noticed. The depth's not great at all positions on defense. Like, there's a couple of, like, you're asking a lot from a lot of rookies or unproven players who might have to step up if injury does occur. But in terms of the starters, this is a scary bunch. Starters are, mamma mia, they ain't half bad. They're pretty good. But again, with kind of the met depth and just really outside of Eric Kendricks, no really good run stuffers. Yeah, I think this defense will trend towards average to below average. I mean, they're not a bottom of the league unit. Their run game is a run defense, but all in all, they're not a bottom of the NFL. They're kind of helped out by what they can do in coverage, what they can do with the pass rush. So I guess this leads me to my prediction for the Los Angeles Chargers in 2023. Currently, they're a 9.5 over under. This is the Chargers we're talking about. I wouldn't take that. I wouldn't bet that. You know, they're going to play some close games. They're going to win some. They're going to lose some, and it's going to screw that. So I'm not betting the Chargers at all this year. But in terms of my projection, I have the Chargers going 10-7. I feel like that's kind of a safe guesstimate right now, because they're a really good squad, especially if they could stay healthy. They're not helped out by the schedule. They have the 8th toughest schedule according to my projections. So it's a tough schedule for the Chargers, but they have enough talent both offensively and defensively. Hopefully if they could stay at least remotely healthy, they have enough talent to really push and be like, they're such on the fringe of being the Super Bowl team. I think this has been making the Twitter rounds, or X rounds, whatever the hell we call it now, that it was said by NFL executives that the Chargers have a Super Bowl capable roster. They just have a bad head coach. And I don't want to say that about Brandon Staley, because I think he's done a lot of things that I've liked. It's just things haven't really gone their way. Like I like how he approaches the game pretty analytically, as you'll see when it comes to this squad offensively. It's like fourth and 2. Yeah, send it. Let's go for it, rather than maybe taking the field goal. Like I like that he takes some of these calculated risks and chances. And yeah, are they all good decisions? No, not always. Are they always calling the best 4th down plays in those circumstances? No, not always. But I just like the thought process there. I do think defensively, eventually you're gonna have to do something. But I think there was enough encouragement in terms of his adjustments, which I kind of mentioned earlier, defensively, to say, okay, I feel like we're trending in the right direction. However, the seat is still hot, especially in a very tough AFC. When you feel like you have an elite level quarterback, you have weapons, you have some studs on defense. Yeah, this team should probably be competed more than they currently are. So yeah, the pressure is kind of on for Staley. Let's go ahead and look at the game by game. As you can never call me biased. No one could ever call me biased, because I'm a Dolphins fan. Fins up. And I try to look at the Dolphins as unbiasedly as I can, to the point where people think I am a fake Dolphins fan. No, I am just a bitter Dolphins fan. So I got Chargers winning the opener. It's at home too for the Chargers. It's kind of an easy bet there. I got them beating Tennessee in week 2. Tennessee did start the season off pretty slow last year. I think they were 0-2. I think to start the year, until they then beat the Raiders the following week. I want to say it was week 3 or week 4. Can't remember which. They have to go to Minneapolis and Minnesota coming off this mini bye, or they have the extended week, so I think that could be a loss there. Inside the division, I have them going 3-3. The AFC West plays each other actually exceptionally well, regardless of how well each team is doing. Just ask the Raiders, man. They could be having the worst season ever, then suddenly they play the Chiefs to the wire. Like, that's just how the division is. They do get an early bye, to which I have them winning against Dallas coming out of their bye. I got them splitting with, I have them splitting with Kansas City, splitting with the Raiders, and splitting with the other team in that division. Broncos, there we go. How can I forget about Mr. Unlimited? Let me just confirm that. Yeah. Okay, so I do have them splitting. Kind of odd that I kind of flipped it here, but I think I mainly probably had Kansas City win here down the wire because of seeding issues. I try to look at also what type of situations those teams might be in near the end of the season. Will they be resting starters? Will they be fighting for a certain seed that maybe gives them home field advantage? And I mean, I do these record predictions, and I feel like I've said this in the last couple of videos. Like, I do about 5 different projections on, okay, how do I feel if things are going, like, what are the highs I think this team can reach, and what are the lows? All right, and I kind of find a ceiling and a floor, and then I just kind of match it up with like what my median is for the squad. So beating the Bears, losing the Jets, Aaron Rodgers' revenge season, baby. Lions are going to be a tough squad. They're also coming out of their bye, so that team was like darn near unstoppable at the back end of the season or second half of the season. Do have y'all beating the Aaron Rodgers-less Packers. Got y'all beating the Ravens, and they're coming off a mini bye. Beating the Patriots. Then talk about a tough way to end the year. You got to face Buffalo, go to Denver, and then face Kansas City. Like Buffalo and Kansas City are probably going to be vying for that first seed in all likelihood, or at least that second seed Buffalo will be vying for. So those are going to be important games, especially when you consider the AFC East is kind of tight. There isn't a bad team, in my opinion, in the AFC East. But yeah, I guess that's it for the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below when it comes to the Chargers. And yeah, I'll hit you up in the comments. But until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.